All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started today. We are going to be going over kind of a crossover a little bit. We're still going to be talking about inventory today, but we're going to be talking about job costing. Going forward in some of our webinars, we're going to be talking more about job costing, more and more about job costing, construction area, construction and manufacturing wholesale. There's actually quite a bit of tie over where you can use bits and pieces from those industries in your industry. So keep an eye out for those things coming forward. Just because it says job costing, you don't technically have jobs, right? But you can still use the features, so it's always good learning. So again, today we're talking about job costing using issue tickets. So basically what do we mean by issue tickets? There's a lot of different terms you can use for this, but it's when we are trying to cost inventory for a job or show the cost of usage of inventory, right? So the cost hits the balance sheet, hits the P&L off of the balance sheet, but without actually having it on the invoice per se, right? Like I'm not billing the client for it. The client's not meant to see this. So there's different workflows with this. Okay, just as a reminder, so I'm Marjorie Adams. I'm the CEO of Fourlane and running the webinar today. We do have our YouTube channel. So all these videos go onto our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Fourlane. There are tons of videos up there. Some of them are very old. I mention this every week, right? Like since 2011, we've been posting videos. We've been doing this for a long time. Concepts are still the same because at the heart of accounting, right? Some things just haven't changed. We also have a Facebook group. I don't know, I've never mentioned this before, but we have Fourlane QuickBooks Enterprise Super User Facebook group. So if you just go in there, you do have to ask to be a member, but that's a good place. We've been doing some surveys, posting these videos as well. Just an FYI. All right, let's talk about job costing. So today we're going to go through a couple things. We're going to go through some workflows that we've seen be successful. Obviously, each one of these, nothing is written in stone when it comes to workflow, right? There is no one answer. There is always the need to be creative to get to the data that we're trying to get to. So as an example, we have estimate to sales order to create invoice. That is a great workflow when we are not quoting the customer on the estimate, but when we're maybe having to look at the job, make modifications to the job, we create two options of the job before we actually move forward with the job, right? So same thing we would be doing, like we're actually quoting a customer, but we're not presenting this to the customer. So that workflow is great when we have modifications on the front end that could be happening. Also, moving it to a sales order, which is going to drive demand for product, right? Triggers us that we got to go order this stuff. And then move to create invoice. So that workflow is pretty normal for a sales workflow, but we're not doing it customer facing, right? What the customers are going to get is most likely one estimate with one or two lump sums on it and some deliverable payments along the way, right? They're not going to see so many lines. So we have just a sales receipt, so we talk about that. Usually we use this as barcode scanners. The situation for this is generally when we're doing kind of more quick turnover jobs, less planning. So a technician in the service industry, as an example, is headed out to do a work order. They run into the warehouse. They grab these 7 pieces of inventory out of the warehouse that they need. Boop, 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 scan them out onto the job. The customer is not going to see this issue ticket, right? What we're taking out to the job. And maybe there's a return process for things we didn't use when we were out there on the job, but it allows us to do job costing. And then, of course, there's just straight bill to sales receipt, which I've seen as well. So we'll talk about that as well. That's mostly, we know what we're purchasing for the job. So when I purchase is when I'm allocating things to the job. I'm not doing anything in the sales process. And then I want to cost it to the job without turning it over to the customer. The details, so I just create a sales receipt. We're going to talk about some reporting and then some of the results, right, in the job costing reports. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in product. That's where I'd like to spend most of my time. Okay, so job costing, right? When it comes to job costing, there's a lot of different ways inside of QuickBooks that you can do this. One of the things that we see most often is we see on bills as an example, right? I can assign a customer job to the item. I can assign a customer job to the expense line. I can assign a customer job to my time card report. So we'll talk about this in a future course, but all the different areas on the expense side that we can allocate costs to a job. But that's not what we're talking about today, per se, right? Some of it might flow in there. What we want to say today is we want to talk about when we need to cost things to a job that are inventory, okay? Because when I go in and I enter a bill or an item receipt, and I put it in here for a particular item, right? So 1, 2, 3, and I put it against a job. I'm going to create a new job, job 2 for today. When I put it against the job and its inventory, where does inventory go, right? We've learned this in the past. Where does inventory hit when we save this bill? In this case, I've got that enhanced inventory turned on, so it doesn't hit, still hits the balance sheet, but it hits the balance sheet, right? And so when I'm looking at any kind of job profitability reports in here, estimate versus actual reports in here, right? These reports are showing me actuals that are hitting the P&L, not actuals that are hitting the balance sheet, okay? So if I put in this bill and I go in and I look at my job profitability summary report, I'm not seeing anything for job 2 on here because the actual costs, right, or the actual revenue are pulling from P&L activity, not from balance sheet activity. This is where the tie over. So when we're dealing with inventory parts, putting it on the bill and tying it to a job is not enough. You have to issue it to the job. You have to use it on the job in order for it to cost to the job. Okay. All right. Let's talk about some of these workflows. So first and foremost, one of the things that I like to do when it comes to issue tickets, I like to create different templates because a lot of times this is different people working these things, right? So I've got a PM. The PM is the one working all the details. They're the one who has to come up with every nut, bolt, screw, pipe, all the things that are required for going to this job. Then we have a sales rep. And sometimes they can be the same person. But the sales rep is generally not as much having to get into those details, right? So they kind of have like a, I mean, if you're doing cost plus, obviously you're gonna have to get into those details, but usually there's a little bit of a difference. So I like to separate the two, right? What is the one that I'm going to show the customer versus what is the one that I'm going to keep internally by setting up different templates. Okay. Now, when I say what is the one I'm going to show the customer, again, if I come into job 2, I am probably going to have a item that's called, construction project. And it is just a service item, revenue related only, most likely. I might stick it because I like making everything cost of goods sold. So stick one side of cost of goods sold, the other side is going to go to revenues. And it's one lump sum that the customer sees, right? So this is a $150,000 project. Okay, so that's the estimate. And I go in, and we'll do this in the future. How do I bill against this estimate? How do I make sure, do customer deposits, retainage, all those things. We'll go into those things in the future. But this is all the customer would see. Okay, that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is what we would do internally. So again, I would have a different template because that helps us too. We can filter by templates, things like that. Come in here and decide which items we need to build to this job. Now, again, you don't have to start with estimate. The reason we would start with estimate is if you are going to be modifying this, quoting this out, building out the estimated costs, etc., prior to moving to sales order, right? Because once we move to sales order, it's going to drive demand for product, drive demand for ordering. So an estimate is kind of like a holding place. You don't have to do this. If I start with estimate, though, I can come in here and I can add the items. Oh, I add in all the items. I can use find and select if I have something in the custom fields that we use, or certain vendors or description items, right? So I can add multiples of things quickly to this and then make modifications on quantity as I go along. I'm actually going to add in some D's so that we're really separated in what we're talking about. Oops. Keep on clicking on this column header and it wants to sort. The other thing that you can do is create what's called group items. So a group item, when I go and add a new group item, generally the purpose of the group items is to kind of quickly fill in standards. So let's say we're in construction and we have a half bath, right? And that's the group. We can print items in the group if we want to. So again, it can be customer facing if you didn't want to show it to them, but we're not going to print items in the group, or maybe we are because we want to be able to do it and pick tickets. But this is our half bath standard, and we go in and we add in all the standard things that go into a half bath. The reason that I do this ahead of time and build up this group ahead of time is because then it can be used over and over and over and over and over again, right? So every time I'm building a casita, I'm going to add in a living room, a half bath, I don't know what the right term is for kitchen, but small kitchen, and whatever it is, whatever we're adding in there. So these group items allow us to quickly fill in things. And I've had people say, well, why don't I just have a group item that has all the items in it, like all the items in my items list? Well, that's not going to work because group items are limited. You can only add at the item setup level 50. It used to be 20. Don't know when it changed to 50, but I tested it today. It's 50. You can add 50 items into this group. Okay. And it helps if you kind of break them down a little bit, right? So I can add in half bath. I can add in kitchen. I can add in living room. What are the things? What are the parts that are going to be necessary? You can do it for job types. So if we're in the service industry, we can say, water heater installation, water heater repair. We can put in, AC unit installation, whatever it is. And then what are the standard parts? Okay. So I see these kinds of things used generally more in like the GC world, but where I see it in manufacturing and wholesale a lot is for projects we're doing internally. For things like when we are testing a new product line or a new rev on a product, right? So it's not going to bill to the customer, but it might bill to an internal customer, like ZZ customer that we create, item 2004, Rev 2. And we're seeing what parts we're needing during R&D to get to Rev 2 on that item. So I've seen it manufacturing quite a bit done this way too. So again, group items. I did create a group item at the very bottom down here so you guys can see what it's like. It's called fake group. Okay, that fake group does have 50 items in it. So it has the max number of items built into it. Now, once it's on an estimate or a transaction, I can actually go in and insert lines and go beyond 50. Okay, so I can keep going beyond the 50 mark if I wanted to. But the idea behind using groups is to quickly fill in so we don't have to think about it so much. Okay, so again, estimate, what does that do? Nothing. Estimate does nothing. Now, customer, we've built it out. We're ready to go. Everything's looking good. Now we create a sales order. So the only reason you would go through this workflow when it comes to issue tickets, all the warnings. The only reason you build this workflow is once I create a sales order, it is now going to drive demand for product, right? It is going to tell me I need to go order these things if I do not have enough of them. It's also going to keep track for me what has been pulled and what hasn't been pulled, because maybe, we do the bathroom first and then we do the kitchen and then we do the living room afterwards. And I want to see what parts we need, which parts have we pulled and which ones haven't we pulled for this job. So there's just more information going through these steps. Sales order is a non-posting transaction, as we talked about before, but it does drive demand for us to order product for these, right? Okay, and even though inside of QuickBooks you can't link a sales order to a purchase order, we actually have a QuickBooks Advanced Reporting report that's kind of an off-the-shelf report that does allow for that linkage. So if you guys are needing kind of a linkage, it's not an actual linkage like in the database, but we have figured out how to get close enough to be able to say what's on a sales order for this job that is not on a purchase order for this job. So we do have that in an advanced reporting report if you guys need that. All right, so sales order in here. One thing I forgot to do on estimate, which I'm just going to go ahead and do now, is all of these things, since we are not billing it to the customer, guess what? We are not going to have any sales amount, right? And so this is something too. A lot of the times when we are doing a workflow like this with a customer, we actually set up the sales amount for all the inventory parts to 0, because they're never going to put an inventory part on an invoice for a client, right? We're never going to invoice a client. Maybe we'll use price levels for them. If we ever happen to invoice a client for this part, we can do the drop down and see the price level for retail price. But most of the time, if they're going to be 0, don't put a sales price when you set up the item so that you don't have to zero it out all the time. Okay. So sales orders here. Now, next step is we create an invoice. Okay, so same thing. I would be using different template types. Okay, different templates. So that I would be able to filter down and see what we're needing. On the sales order, when I go to create an invoice, I can create an invoice for all sales order items or selected. Now, if you do selected, if you choose one in the group, it chooses all, right? I'll show you what happens when you go to the actual invoice. I can also choose to only select one here. So what I like to do is I don't like to say select and do that tiny little screen that we can't expand. I like to say create invoice and say create invoice for all selected items, and then I just modify it on the invoice itself, because until I hit save, this invoice is not saved. Okay. So on here, I can say these items all go to 0, right? Because I'm not shipping these items out. But again, you can see where it could be helpful to use kind of group items in subsets, because I can zero out a group, not invoicing for this group right now because I'm not doing that yet, which would leave it open on the sales order that it still needs to be fulfilled. Okay. When I save this, paid, don't have to do anything, don't have to receive payments against it. But there's a couple things that happen behind the scenes, right? So when I go in and look at my transaction journal, because these are inventory parts for the ones that are being used, right, I'm getting that cost. So for this part, this D part, which we did add, I'm getting that cost picked up on this issue ticket. Now, one of the things, too, you can do on these, and we tend to do it on the sales receipt. I'll show you that one. But you can, when you change the templates, you can on the template change it to call it an issue ticket. Okay. Now, it's not going to change it in the system, like when I go to, customers create invoice. It's still going to say create invoice. But when I open it, it'll say issue ticket right here, which makes it a lot easier for people to know which transaction type, which template type am I on. change that back because it's going to mess with me in future webinars. Okay, so I saved this transaction. So that means I still have some open sales orders there. One of the reports that I like to use is I like to go to custom transaction detail, and you can make this report and save it. You don't have to modify it every time. But I come in here, accrual basis, right? I search for columns, and I like to add in the quantity column. I like to add in the back ordered column. And then I like to total by item detail because it's going to show me by item. And again, filter for, you have to add in posting status of non-posting because it defaults. The custom transaction detail report defaults to posting, which means I wouldn't see sales orders. So if you go through this, you're like, where's my sales order? I filtered by transaction type of sales order. Where is it? It's because we forgot to go to posting status and choose non-posting. That's what I'm looking for. So posting status, non-posting, and then I like to also filter down by job so I can see what is still on back order. Right, so you can see in here, and I can get rid of some of these other columns. I don't really need debit and credit because it doesn't matter at this point. I can see how many were ordered and how many are still outstanding for this job. Now, you don't have to total by item detail. I could add in the item over here on the line and then just total by customer. Makes it so it's less, right? So again, it's still showing me what is back ordered. What parts do I still need to fulfill? And all the other ones that I had already fulfilled are on here. Okay. Now, one of the other things too that you can look at is in customized reports, one of the filters that you can do is you can filter for templates. So if you set up a special template called issue ticket, you only want to look at the issue tickets, you can do that here as well. Okay, so that's why I say set up a different template. So that's one of the workflows that we have here. The other one, oh gosh, we're running on time. I keep on. The other one that I see quite frequently when it comes to going against jobs is sales receipts. This is the one I see most frequently. That estimate, sales order, create invoices. It's a lot. I mean, it's a lot of transactions, right? Probably if you're doing it that way frequently, periodically, you should be calling us to purge out your non-posting transactions, right? Your closed estimate, your closed sales orders. But I see sales receipts a lot. And this one, I always go in and modify the template, change it to say issue ticket. Okay. Now, I see these used a lot of times, sales receipts, when it comes to inventory, because you don't actually have to put a customer on a sales receipt. So I see that a lot when people just want to show utilization of sales, items. They don't, so they want to show the cost of the item moving from the balance sheet to the P&L, but they don't need to cost it to a job. So I've seen that a lot with internal inventory, things like supplies. However, I try to teach customers, even if it's internal inventory, still create a fake customer and job because it's just an extra dimension of data that you can track by. Okay. So come in here, customer job. Generally with issue tickets, what people are doing, they choose the job. They probably have a sales rep in here, and that sales rep is whoever's taking it from the warehouse. And they use a barcode scanner. They walk around the warehouse, bloop, 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 bloop. Barcode scan everything that they're taking out of the warehouse. At the point it's leaving the warehouse, it's being utilized on the job. And then if at any point we return anything in, then we will see that. So I'm going to put in job 3 here, create a new job for this issue ticket, and just do find and select and add a couple items on here, right? And again, shouldn't have to zero these out if they are frequently being utilized but not billed to a customer. We can go ahead and say save. Okay. So this What you're not going to get by this is you're not going to get an estimate versus actual. You're not going to get what's on back order, but you will still get what is costed to the job. So when I come look at my job profitability summary, look at that, I've got some more customers on here because now job 2 has actual costs and job 3 has actual costs. Okay. So reminder, in order for inventory to be costed to the job, to show up on those job costing reports, it has to be utilized on a sales transaction. All right, the third workflow that I've seen a lot of times is one is driven from purchasing. We're not going to use all these other things, but maybe somebody's just coming in and creating purchase orders for jobs. So they're bypassing the estimate, the sales order, all this stuff. They're just coming in and creating purchase orders for the job. Then on the purchase order, right, vendor A, I'm buying this item, quantity of 2, for job number 4. Okay. Because you can associate it on the job here. So I go in and I just straight put in purchase orders. Now I come in and I say vendors, enter bills. For vendor A, it says, oh, you got stuff open. I say, yeah, I want to do this purchase order. It draws the customer across for me. So I don't have to worry about it. Single point of entry, draws it across. And it's marked billable here. Okay. Now this cost, you do not zero out this cost because this is how much we're paying for it. We need this cost here because that builds the value. So that when we utilize the value, the cost will actually be picked up. Now I come into my create sales receipts and I do job 4. And we use the time and materials billing to bill that item to the job, right? So once a week, I go into all my jobs, I create an issue ticket for job 4, and I just add all those time and costs, zero out the rates, because it's a $0 transaction as far as sales go. Sorry. But behind the scenes, what it does is it builds the cost of that against the job. So when I go look at my profitability, I now have job 4 on there, $11.60, and no revenues, right? Because revenues we would be treating differently in this case. Okay. If you guys have any questions, make sure to put them. I'm right up against time. I want to get you out of here on time, but make sure to put them in chat. If there are other topics you want to see around job costing, make sure to put that in chat. We also, as I mentioned in that Facebook group, we do have a survey going on what things do you want to learn. So you guys can go in there and put in what things you want to learn and make sure that we are tackling some of those things. Well, future courses, we just did the issue tickets. We're going to talk about serial numbers. We're going to do some job costing labor with stated costs. We also have some WebGility courses coming up as well. Lots of connecting WebGility to your web store, setting up WebGility. So still some inventory related type of things. Please let us know if you have other topics. As I mentioned, we're going to go into retainage, customer deposits, like so many things coming up. As a reminder, what is our formula for success here at Fourlane? So we are data driven. We want to set up your system so that you can get to the data that you're needing. I know everybody's talking to their CPAs this time of year about tax. And what are we going to do around taxes? Taxes and how the CPAs want your books to look is not how your books should look if you need to make decisions every day, right? And that's what we're focused on, is getting you data to make decisions right now if we need to. Okay, that's all I got for you guys this week. I hope everybody took away some nuggets. Please make sure to share this, by the way, with friends and coworkers who you think could take away from this and learn some things. And that's all I got for you guys. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks, everyone.